Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Channel. Tonight, we step inside the Tower of London, one of the most famous strongholds in the world. For nearly 1,000 years, this fortress has stood beside the river. It has watched over a city that never stopped changing. Behind its walls, power was protected. Fear was managed. Royal lives were shaped by decisions made in stone chambers. The tower is not only a place of imprisonment, it is a royal palace with a stranger story than many people expect. It has held treasures that still matter today. It has sheltered secrets that historians still debate. It has turned real events into legends that refuse to fade. There is something gripping about a building that can feel both familiar and unknown. Every gate has a purpose. Every wall has a memory. Every room seems to ask what really happened there. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your shoulders soften. Allow your eyes to grow heavy. And as the day begins to fade away, join me as we explore the Tower of London together. Let's begin. The tower was built to warn London that Norman rule had arrived. After the Norman conquest, London was not simply a prize. It was a problem. The city was rich, crowded, proud, and capable of resistance. So the new ruler placed a fortress at its edge, where the old Roman wall met the river. This was not just a military decision. It was a message built in stone. Anyone approaching by water would see it. Anyone living nearby would feel it. The castle announced that a foreign king now controlled the most important city in England. It stood where trade, movement, and authority could be watched at once. In a world where power was often measured by visibility, the tower did its work before a single soldier raised a weapon. Its size told Londoners that rebellion would be dangerous. Its position told merchants that the river was under royal eyes. From the beginning, it was a monument to control, created to make conquest feel permanent. William the Conqueror built the White Tower to dominate the Thames. The Great Keep rose at a bend in the river where ships carried goods, soldiers, messages, and news into the heart of London. William understood that whoever controlled the Thames controlled more than water. They controlled movement. They controlled supply. They controlled the gateway between the city and the wider world. The White Tower was designed to make that authority impossible to ignore. Its walls were immensely thick. Its rooms were raised above danger. Its height let royal power look outward across the river and inward across the city. For people used to smaller timber defenses, the scale must have felt astonishing. This was not a hidden stronghold tucked into the countryside. It was a royal statement placed in full view. The river below carried England's wealth, and the stone above it declared who now commanded that flow. Even today, its position explains why the building mattered so deeply. The tower was a fortress, palace, prison, zoo, mint, and treasure house. Few buildings have lived so many different lives without losing their identity. At different moments, the tower served the needs of kings, soldiers, officials, craftsmen, animals, prisoners, and the public. Its walls could protect a ruler in time of danger. Its chambers could display royal comfort. Its cells could isolate people whose words or bloodlines had become inconvenient. Its workshops turned precious metal into official coin. Its guarded rooms protected objects that symbolized authority. Even its animal collections turned politics into spectacle, because rare creatures could prove the reach of royal friendship and influence. This variety is what makes the tower feel less like one building and more like a whole government carved into stone. It changed purpose, as England changed. Yet each role added another layer to its meaning. The same fortress could inspire pride, dread, curiosity, and loyalty, depending on who stood before it. The crown jewels guarded there are still used in royal ceremonies. Many treasures in museums are relics. They are admired because they belong to the past. The regalia kept at the tower is different, because some of it still has a working role in the life of the monarchy. These objects are not merely beautiful. They are part of public ceremony, and their meaning becomes most visible when they leave their guarded home for moments of state. Crowns, swords, orbs, and scepters carry ideas that are older than most institutions around us. They speak of duty, authority, religion, continuity, and public recognition. Their value is not only in gold or gemstones. It is in the ceremony that gives them purpose. That is why their security matters so much. They are objects people come to see behind glass, yet they are also instruments of living tradition. The tower protects them as treasure, but also as symbols that still perform. The princes in the tower remain one of history's greatest mysteries. Two royal boys entered the fortress during a dangerous struggle for the English throne, and then they disappeared from public view. That simple fact has haunted historians for centuries. They were young, politically valuable, and surrounded by adults whose futures depended on power. Their uncle became king. Their supporters feared the worst. Later generations searched for answers in chronicles, rumors, confessions, and bones. Yet the central question remains unresolved. Were they killed? If so, who ordered it? If not, where did they go? The mystery endures because it sits at the meeting point of childhood, ambition, and royal fear. It is not only a detective story. It is a warning about what succession politics could do to the vulnerable. The tower became the stage on which absence itself became unforgettable. No confirmed account closes the case. That silence has allowed suspicion to echo through English history for more than 500 years. Anne Boleyn walked to her death inside the tower walls. Her final mourning is one of the most famous scenes in Tudor history, partly because it unfolded with such terrible formality. Once she had been crowned queen with great display. Now she moved through the same royal fortress as a condemned woman. The setting mattered. This was not a distant battlefield or a hidden cell. It was the heart of royal authority, where a marriage, a dynasty, and a religious revolution had all become entangled. Anne faced death with words that were carefully chosen and publicly heard. A swordsman had been brought from France, which was seen as a swifter method than the axe. The moment was intimate, political, and theatrical, all at once. Her fall showed how quickly favor could become danger in Henry's court. It also fixed the tower forever in the story of queenship. Her life ended there, but her reputation only grew larger. The ravens are protected because legend says Britain depends on them. The birds are among the most famous residents in the fortress, and their presence gives the tower a strange, living heartbeat. The story says that if they ever leave, the kingdom will fall. Whether the legend is ancient or much more recent, its power is obvious. It turns ordinary animal care into a national ritual. They are watched, fed, named, and managed with great seriousness. Their feathers, moods, and movements become part of the daily life of the site. Visitors may arrive for jewels or famous prisoners, but many leave remembering the birds most vividly. There is something irresistible about the idea that a powerful state might be tied to a handful of black wings inside an old fortress. It blends superstition with ceremony in a way that feels perfectly suited to the tower. History here is never only paperwork. It also has beaks, calls, and shadows. The ceremony of the keys has locked the tower nightly for centuries. Every night, the fortress is secured in a ritual that feels almost untouched by modern life. The words are formal. The movements are precise. The purpose is simple, yet the meaning is far larger than a locked gate. It is a reminder that the tower is not only a tourist destination. It remains a guarded royal site with rules, officers, and traditions that continue after the visitors leave. The ceremony survives because repetition can become its own kind of history. Night after night, the same essential act is performed. Keys are carried. Questions are asked. Authority is confirmed. In an age of electronic security and instant communication, the ritual can seem almost impossible. That is exactly why it fascinates people. It proves that some parts of the fortress still measure time in older ways. When the gates close, the tower briefly becomes itself again, separate from the city outside. The polar bear once lived at the tower and fished in the Thames. Among all the animals once kept at the royal menagerie, the polar bear may be the most surprising. It was a gift from the King of Norway to Henry III, and its care created a problem no ordinary keeper had faced. This was not a creature suited to a small cage in a London fortress. Records suggest it was allowed into the Thames on a long chain where it could swim and catch fish. The image is extraordinary because it joins two worlds that seem to have no business meeting. A northern predator moved beneath the walls of a medieval castle, while Londoners watched from the riverbank. To the royal court, the animal was a sign of status and connection. To the public, it must have seemed almost unbelievable. Long before modern zoos, the tower became a place where political gifts turned into living wonders. The tower still feels alive because people actually live inside it. Many historic buildings empty out after closing time. The tower is different. Behind the famous walls is a real community with homes, routines, responsibilities, and private moments that most visitors never see. Yeoman Warders and their families live within the precincts. So do other people connected to the site's work and care. This changes the feeling of the place completely. It is not a frozen ruin. It is inhabited history. Lights appear in windows after dark. Footsteps cross courtyards when the crowds have gone. Daily life continues beside chapels, towers, gates, and guarded treasures. That human presence helps explain why the fortress has never become only a symbol. It is still managed from within. The people who live there are part of a chain of occupation reaching back through centuries. The tower survives not just because it is preserved, but because it remains a working place with a pulse. The White Tower was once the tallest building in London. To understand its original impact, it helps to imagine a much lower city. Medieval London did not have glass towers, railway bridges, or modern office blocks. Its skyline was shaped by church roofs, timber houses, defensive walls, and the river. Into that landscape rose a stone keep of startling height and mass. It must have looked almost overwhelming. Height was not only practical, it gave defenders a better view, made assault more difficult, and allowed the king's power to be seen from far away. But the psychological effect may have mattered just as much. People did not need to enter the fortress to understand what it meant. They could read its message from the street, the wharf, or a boat on the Thames. The building turned vertical space into authority. Before London reached upward in so many directions, this one pale tower dominated the imagination of the city. Its pale stone came from Normandy to announce foreign royal power. The choice of building material was not neutral. The stone used for the Great Keep included keen stone from Normandy, carried across the Channel for a fortress in conquered England. That decision linked the building directly to the homeland of the new ruling elite. It also gave the tower a striking appearance. Against the darker textures of medieval London, pale imported stone would have made the structure seem even more deliberate and alien. This was architecture with an accent. It told local people that the new order was not temporary. It had ships, resources, craftsmen, and the confidence to move heavy materials across the sea. In a time before mass media, buildings could speak loudly. The White Tower said that the conquerors had arrived with more than soldiers. They had brought their own style of kingship. Its very surface became a reminder that England was now tied to Norman power. The tower's first moat was meant to terrify approaching enemies. A moat was not just a ditch filled with water. It was part of the carefully designed language of defense. Before an attacker could reach the walls, they had to cross an exposed barrier under watch from above. That delay could be deadly. It slowed movement, broke formation, and made siege equipment harder to use. Around the tower, the water also changed how the fortress appeared. It separated the royal stronghold from the city around it, making the site feel like a controlled island of power. The moat warned that entry was never casual. Every crossing was deliberate. Every approach could be observed. In medieval warfare, fear was part of strategy, and obstacles did not need to kill in order to work. They only had to make attackers hesitate. The first moat helped turn stone walls into a complete defensive theater, where danger began before the gate was reached. The surrounding walls turned one tower into a miniature fortified city. The White Tower may be the most famous structure, but the fortress became far more complex as later rulers expanded it. Additional walls, towers, gates, chambers, courtyards, and service buildings transformed the site into a secure royal world. Inside its defenses, people could worship, store supplies, keep records, house officials, guard valuables, and prepare for crisis. This was crucial because a castle had to function, not merely stand. During periods of uncertainty, the monarch needed a place that could support government as well as survival. The expanding enclosure gave the tower layers of protection and layers of purpose. Anyone entering passed through controlled spaces, each one more restricted than the last. That design created a sense of depth. Power was not located in a single room. It was distributed through walls, passages, and guarded thresholds. The result was a fortress that behaved almost like a small city under royal command. Traitor's Gate became the most dreaded entrance in Tudor England. The name alone carries a chill, but its true force came from the journeys associated with it. Important prisoners could be brought by river and delivered straight into the fortress through a water entrance. That route avoided the chaos of public streets, yet it did not remove the drama. A prisoner arriving there knew they had entered a place where royal suspicion could become final. During the Tudor period, the tower became closely linked with accusations of treason. Treason was not just a crime. It was a direct offense against the monarch's body and authority. To pass through the gate was to cross into a machinery of questioning, waiting, and fear. Not everyone who entered died. Some were released. Some returned to favor. But uncertainty made the entrance more frightening, not less. It was the point where rumor became confinement, and where a life of rank could suddenly narrow to stone and water. Prisoners arriving by river saw freedom vanish behind stone arches. For those brought to the fortress by boat, the journey itself must have felt painfully symbolic. London remained visible. The river still moved. Ordinary life continued along the banks. Then the prisoner reached the walls, and the outside world began to close away. Water entrances were practical, but they also shaped the emotional experience of captivity. A person could be carried from courtly life, public office, or political influence into guarded silence, without crossing a crowded street. The city was near enough to hear, yet unreachable. That closeness made imprisonment sharper. The tower did not stand in some remote wilderness. It held people beside the capital whose decisions had often made them dangerous. The river that once carried merchants, royal barges, and messages could also deliver disgrace. In that final approach, stone arches became more than architecture. They became the moment a public life disappeared from view. The tower was never built only to hold prisoners. Popular memory often turns the fortress into a gloomy prison first, and everything else second. That misses the original ambition of the place. Its earliest purpose was royal security, urban control, and military strength. Imprisonment became one function among many because the site was secure, visible, and close to power. Important captives could be kept there precisely because it was already a royal fortress. The distinction matters. A prison is designed around confinement. The tower was designed around authority. It could hold soldiers, stores, ceremonial rooms, administrative offices, and valuable objects, because its purpose was broad from the start. This explains why some prisoners lived in relative comfort, while others suffered greatly. They were being fitted into a working royal complex, not a purpose-built prison system. The darker stories are real, but they are only part of the larger truth. The tower held people because it first held power. Medieval kings used the tower as a secure royal home. Before it became fixed in the popular imagination as a place of fear, the fortress also offered safety and status to rulers who needed both. A medieval king could not rely on London's mood always being friendly. Crowds, factions, rival claimants, and sudden unrest all made security essential. Within the tower, royal apartments allowed the monarch to remain close to the capital while protected by walls and guards. This arrangement suited a world where kingship was personal and physical. The ruler had to be seen, housed, defended, and surrounded by symbols of legitimacy. The fortress offered a controlled setting for that. It was not necessarily comfortable by modern standards, but it could be impressive. Fine chambers, chapels, service rooms, and guarded approaches helped create a residence fit for authority. To live there was to make a statement. The king was in London, but London did not have easy access to him. The Wakefield Tower once held Henry III's private chambers. Henry III did much to transform the fortress from a stern Norman stronghold into a more elaborate royal residence. His private chambers in the Wakefield Tower show how much medieval kings cared about display, devotion, and comfort within secure walls. This was not simply a room for sleeping. It was part of a carefully arranged royal environment where access reflected rank and favor. Only certain people could come close to the king's private spaces. Decoration mattered because it expressed sacred monarchy as well as personal taste. Henry's reign invested heavily in building projects, and the tower became one of the places where his idea of kingship took material form. The Wakefield Tower reminds us that medieval power was experienced through spaces as much as laws. Who could enter? Who had to wait? Who stood near the ruler? These details shaped politics. A chamber could be private and political at the same time. Kings slept inside the fortress before their coronations at Westminster. The night before, a coronation carried deep meaning. A ruler was not yet fully crowned, yet was already moving toward the most public transformation of their life. The tower offered a secure place to prepare before the ceremonial journey through London to Westminster. That route mattered because monarchy needed witnesses. The new sovereign's progress allowed the city to see royal authority in motion. Beginning from the fortress gave the event a powerful setting. The tower held the ruler safely before the wider performance began. It connected military security with sacred ceremony. The coronation itself took place elsewhere, but the preparation inside the fortress added gravity to the transition. Imagine the contrast. Within the walls, controlled rooms and guarded gates. Beyond them, crowds waiting for spectacle. The monarch's movement from fortress to abbey turned private anticipation into public legitimacy. In that pattern, the tower became the threshold between inheritance and crowned rule. The tower protected royal treasure long before modern banks existed. In a medieval kingdom, wealth was not abstract. It was metal, jewels, documents, plate, and sacred objects that had to be physically guarded. The tower became one of the safest places to keep them because it combined stone walls with royal authority. A locked chest inside an ordinary building could be stolen. A locked chest inside this fortress was surrounded by guards, gates, towers, and the force of the crown. That made it valuable not only as storage, but as a statement of control. Kings needed treasure to pay armies, reward loyalty, negotiate power, and impress visitors. Losing it could weaken a reign. Protecting it could strengthen one. Over time, the fortress became associated with the deep material foundations of monarchy. It held the things that made government possible and kingship visible. Before finance became invisible numbers on screens, power had weight, shine, and physical danger. The tower was built to keep that danger under watch. The jewel house became a magnet for crowds and thieves. Once royal regalia began to be shown to paying visitors, the fortress gained a new kind of drama. People came not only to imagine history, but to stare at objects connected with coronations, sovereignty, and immense wealth. That attraction created an obvious temptation. The more famous the collection became, the more daring a theft would seem. Guards and keepers had to manage curiosity and risk at the same time. Visitors wanted to see closely. Officials needed distance, locks, and procedure. The display of treasure is always a strange bargain. Objects must be visible enough to inspire awe, yet secure enough to survive being admired. In the tower, that tension became part of the experience. People were not simply looking at beautiful things. They were looking at the visible center of royal legitimacy. The room itself became a theater of trust, where every shining surface reminded viewers that wealth can invite devotion and danger together. Colonel Blood nearly stole the crown jewels with astonishing boldness. In the 17th century, one of the strangest crimes in Tower history unfolded with almost theatrical confidence. Thomas Blood did not rely on brute force alone. He used charm, disguise, patience, and nerve. He befriended the keeper of the jewels, gained access, and returned with accomplices prepared to seize the regalia. The plan was shocking because the objects were more than valuables. They were symbols of restored monarchy after years of civil war and republican rule. Blood and his men attacked the keeper, flattened a crown to hide it, and tried to escape with pieces of the royal collection. They were caught before they could get away. The aftermath became even more surprising because Blood received a royal pardon. That decision has fascinated people ever since. Was it admiration for audacity? Was it political calculation? The attempted theft turned the tower into the setting for a crime so bold it still feels almost impossible. The crown jewels contained thousands of diamonds, pearls, and gemstones. Their visual impact comes from more than gold. The collection glitters because it gathers natural materials from across time, empire, trade, craftsmanship, and ceremony. Each gem had to be found, cut, set, guarded, and given meaning. Some stones are famous in their own right. Others vanish into the larger blaze of crowns and regalia. Together they create an effect that can feel almost unreal because the eye cannot easily separate individual details from the total shimmer. Yet every surface is deliberate. A crown is designed to be seen in ceremony, under light, from a distance, as a sign of authority rather than private luxury. The jewels are not simply expensive decoration. They turn political ideas into visible form. Continuity becomes metal. Majesty becomes color. Rank becomes weight. When people stand before them, they are seeing a carefully protected language of power, written in stones that took millions of years to form. St. Edward's crown is only used for the coronation moment. Some objects gain power through constant use. This crown gains power through rarity. It appears at the most solemn point of a coronation, when a monarch is formally crowned. Because it is used so sparingly, its meaning becomes concentrated. It is not a general accessory of monarchy. It is the object associated with the act of becoming sovereign in the fullest ceremonial sense. Its weight is famously considerable, which adds to the physical seriousness of the moment. The wearer does not simply display authority, they feel it. The crown connects modern ceremony with older ideas of sacred kingship, public duty, and national continuity. Its design also reminds us that royal ritual is built from layers rather than inventions made fresh each time. When the crown is placed on the monarch's head, a brief action carries centuries of expectation. Then it returns to guarded stillness. That limited use helps preserve its aura. The imperial state crown leaves the tower for parliament ceremonies. Unlike a crown reserved for one rare moment, this one has a more active public life. It is closely associated with the state opening of Parliament, when monarchy and government meet in formal ceremony. Its journey from the tower matters because it shows that the regalia is not asleep behind glass. It can still move through the machinery of the state. The crown's presence turns a constitutional event into something visually unforgettable. It carries history into a chamber where laws and speeches shape the present. This is part of the tower's fascination. Objects guarded there are not disconnected from modern Britain. They can leave their fortress home and take part in national ritual. Security, protocol, and tradition all follow them. When the crown returns, it brings back the memory of public use. The tower is therefore not only a place that protects the past. It safeguards ceremonial tools that still step into the present. The tower's jewels are real working objects, not museum copies. It is easy to assume that anything behind thick glass has become purely historical. The regalia challenges that assumption. These are not theatrical props made for display alone. They are official objects with defined roles in national ceremony. That gives them a different emotional charge from ordinary treasures. A visitor is not simply looking at what once mattered. They are looking at things that may matter again in a future public moment. This makes the tower's security feel more understandable. The guards are not protecting dead wealth. They are protecting functioning symbols. Their survival depends on care, but their meaning depends on use. Each return to ceremony renews the link between object and office. The same piece can be admired by tourists on one day and carried into state ritual on another. That dual identity is rare. It turns the display into something alive, because the objects have not finished their work. The Yeoman Warders once guarded prisoners instead of guiding visitors. Today, their uniforms are part of the tower's public face, and their stories help visitors understand the site. Their origins, however, belong to a harsher world. They were not created as entertainers or guides. They were royal guards with serious responsibilities in a fortress that could hold dangerous or politically sensitive people. Watching prisoners required discipline, trust, and constant awareness. A careless guard could become part of an escape, a scandal, or a security failure. Over the centuries, as the tower's role changed, the warders became interpreters of history as well as guardians of place. That transformation is fascinating because it mirrors the fortress itself. A site once associated with fear now welcomes millions, yet it still preserves official structure. The warders carry that balance in person. They stand between military tradition and storytelling, between living ceremony and public memory. Their presence makes the tower feel guarded by history rather than merely staffed. Every yeoman warder must have served in the armed forces. The role is not handed out as a costume or a performance job. It is earned through long military service, which gives the position a seriousness visitors may not immediately realize. Behind the familiar uniform is a career shaped by discipline, command, duty, and public responsibility. That background matters because the tower is still a royal fortress with ceremonial obligations and security expectations. The warders do more than tell stories. They represent a continuation of service inside a place where the crown has relied on trusted personnel for centuries. Their military experience also gives weight to the way they speak about loyalty, danger, imprisonment, and national tradition. They are not distant from those ideas. They have lived within institutions built around duty. This requirement connects the modern tower to its old defensive character. Even when a warder is guiding a crowd, the role carries the memory of watchfulness. The uniform belongs to service first. The Beefeater nickname may come from royal food privileges. The famous nickname sounds cheerful now, but it may point back to a time when access to food reflected rank and favor. Meat was expensive, status-laden, and deeply connected to household privilege. If guards attached to the royal household received generous portions of beef, people would have noticed. A nickname could grow from that visible advantage. It is a small detail, yet it opens a doorway into the everyday world of hierarchy. In earlier centuries, power was not expressed only through crowns and ceremonies. It appeared in meals, clothing, wages, housing, and who had the right to stand near important people. The warder's nickname may therefore preserve a trace of social history hidden inside a familiar word. Visitors often smile at it without thinking too deeply, but it reminds us that the tower was also a workplace. Its traditions were shaped by ordinary needs as much as grand events. Even food could become legend. Yeoman warders live inside the tower with their families. This is one of the details that most changes how people imagine the fortress. It is not simply unlocked in the morning and abandoned at dusk. It contains homes. Families have private routines within walls that millions of visitors associate with famous prisoners, royal jewels, and ancient ceremonies. Children have grown up there. Neighbors know one another. Domestic life continues beside some of the most charged spaces in English history. That contrast is astonishing. A person might make tea within a fortress known across the world, then walk past towers that once held people accused of treason. The arrangement also means the tower is cared for by people whose connection is not abstract. They do not only work there, they inhabit it. Their presence keeps the place from becoming a lifeless monument. The fortress has always contained communities of guards, officials, servants, and specialists. Modern residents continue that older pattern in a changed form. The tower has its own doctor, chaplain, and tiny community. Inside the walls, daily life requires more than uniforms and ceremonies. A resident community needs care, worship, support, and organization. That is why the tower can feel almost like a small village hidden inside a world-famous monument. Its internal life includes roles that belong to ordinary human needs, not just public history. A chaplain connects the fortress to a long spiritual tradition, especially through its chapel and services. A doctor reflects the practical reality that people actually live and work there. Community structures create continuity after the ticket gates close. This is a powerful reminder that historic places are not only shaped by great events, They are sustained by maintenance, relationships, routines, and care. The tower's private world exists beside its public identity, and the two depend on each other. Visitors see the grand surface. Residents know the rhythms beneath it. That hidden social life gives the fortress depth beyond stone. The ceremony of the keys follows words spoken for generations. Ritual becomes powerful when people keep saying the same words long after the original world has changed. In this nightly locking ceremony, language is part of the security. The questions and responses confirm identity, authority, and permission. They also connect the present guards to those who carried out the same duty before them. The practical purpose is clear. A fortress must be secured. Yet the spoken exchange gives that practical act a sense of inheritance. It tells everyone involved that they are not simply closing gates. They are taking part in a chain of service. In modern life, many routines change quickly. Phrases are updated, roles are redesigned, and old forms disappear. The tower preserves a different rhythm. Its words survive because they carry memory. When spoken after dark inside those walls, they make time feel layered. A simple challenge and answer can briefly bring centuries into the same courtyard. A wartime bomb once delayed the nightly locking ceremony. The strength of a tradition is sometimes revealed by interruption. During the Second World War, enemy bombing damaged London and brought danger even to ancient places that had already survived centuries of conflict. On one night, an explosion affected the ceremony of the keys and delayed its completion. What matters is not merely that the ritual was disrupted. It is that it continued. In a city under attack, carrying on with a nightly locking ceremony might seem small. Yet such acts can become quiet forms of defiance. They say that order still exists. They say that institutions have not surrendered to chaos. The tower had once been built for war in a medieval sense, but modern bombing brought danger from the sky rather than from besieging soldiers. The delayed ceremony linked two very different military ages in one moment. A tradition from the old fortress world passed through the violence of modern warfare. The tower ravens have names and carefully monitored personalities. The birds are treated as individual residents rather than anonymous symbols. Their keepers learn which ones are bold, suspicious, playful, difficult, or especially attached to certain habits. That attention matters because ravens are intelligent animals with complex behavior. They solve problems, recognize people, remember experiences, and respond to their environment in ways that can surprise even experienced handlers. Naming them makes their role easier for visitors to understand, but it also reflects the practical reality of care. The raven with a strong temperament cannot be managed like a decorative statue. It has preferences. It can test boundaries. It can bond or misbehave. This gives the tower's famous legend a living unpredictability. The birds do not merely represent an old story. They wake, eat, quarrel, explore, and choose. Their personalities make the fortress feel less controlled than its stone walls suggest. Even the royal stronghold must negotiate with creatures that have minds of their own. Raven wings are clipped, so they stay within the fortress. The practice sounds simple, but it reveals how carefully the legend is managed. The birds are allowed movement, presence, and daily life, yet their flight is limited to keep them close to the tower. This balance reflects the strange status they hold. They are animals, symbols, residents, and public favorites all at once. A completely free raven might leave, which would trouble the story that surrounds them. A completely confined bird would lose the living presence that makes them so memorable. Clipping the wings offers a middle path. It allows them to hop, glide short distances, and occupy the grounds, while reducing the chance of permanent departure. Their care also involves diet, shelter, health checks, and attention from specialists who understand their behavior. The result is a managed myth made visible every day. The birds appear ancient and mysterious, but behind that impression is practical work. Legend survives because someone tends it. The Raven Master cares for birds that became national symbols. This role combines animal husbandry with public storytelling in a way few jobs can match. The person responsible must understand feeding, health, enclosure, training, and temperament. At the same time, they guard one of the tower's most beloved traditions. The ravens are not rare decorations placed around the fortress for atmosphere. They are central to how many visitors remember the site. Their keeper becomes the human bridge between biology and legend. Every detail can matter, from the bird's diet to how they respond to crowds. A raven that grows stressed or aggressive presents practical problems. A healthy, confident bird helps the tradition feel alive. The Raven Master therefore protects both welfare and meaning. It is a reminder that symbols are never maintained by symbolism alone. They require labor. They require attention. They require people who can care for living creatures while carrying the weight of a story that has grown larger than fact. The oldest raven legend may be younger than many believe. Some traditions feel so ancient, but questioning their age can seem almost rude. Yet history often works differently from memory. The famous belief that the kingdom depends on the tower's ravens may not stretch back as far as many people imagine. It may have developed, changed, or gained prominence in more recent centuries. That does not make it unimportant. In fact, it makes it more interesting. Legends do not need to be medieval to become powerful. They grow because people repeat them, protect them, and attach meaning to them. The tower is especially good at this process. Its real history is dramatic enough, but stories gather around it like ivy on stone. A newer tradition can become beloved if it feels right in its setting. The Raven legend works because it matches the fortress perfectly. Dark birds, royal survival, ancient walls, and national fate form a story people want to believe. The Tower Menagerie was London's first long-running royal zoo. Long before modern zoological gardens, the fortress housed a collection of animals that astonished visitors and advertised royal connections. Keeping such creatures was not simply a hobby. It was a display of reach. If a monarch possessed animals from far beyond England, the collection suggested diplomatic links, wealth, and influence. People who saw them encountered living proof that the world was larger and stranger than their daily surroundings. The menagerie also reveals how differently earlier societies understood animals. They were wonders, gifts, symbols, and entertainments. Their welfare was not approached with modern knowledge or standards. Still, the collection became an important part of London's experience of the exotic. For many residents, the tower may have offered their first sight of creatures they had only heard described in travelers' tales. The fortress, therefore, did more than guard people and objects. It gathered living curiosities that turned royal power into public spectacle. Exotic animals arrived as diplomatic gifts from distant rulers. A rare animal could be a message in living form. When rulers sent creatures across borders, they were not simply being generous. They were displaying access to distant lands, unusual resources, and networks of exchange. Receiving such a gift placed the English monarch within a wider world of royal communication. The animal itself became evidence of relationship. It had crossed seas, courts, and languages before reaching the fortress. Once inside the tower, it continued to speak without words. Visitors could look at it and understand that kings dealt in wonders as well as treaties. The practical challenges must have been enormous. Keepers had to feed animals whose habits were unfamiliar house them in an unsuitable climate, and interpret behavior they did not fully understand. Yet the value of the gift lay partly in that difficulty. A creature that was hard to obtain was impressive precisely because it was extraordinary. Diplomacy sometimes arrived breathing. Henry III kept leopards, lions, and an elephant there. His reign made the royal animal collection especially memorable. Large predators brought danger and prestige, while an elephant represented a level of rarity that must have stunned Londoners. Many people in medieval England would never have seen such an animal, and some may have struggled to believe descriptions until they stood before it. The elephant was a gift connected with royal diplomacy, and its arrival turned the tower into a place of wonder as well as authority. Caring for it was another matter. Medieval keepers had limited knowledge of its needs, and the English climate was far from suitable. Even so, the presence of such an animal changed what the fortress meant. It became a storehouse of marvels. Lions and leopards projected courage, nobility, and danger. The elephant suggested distance, wealth, and almost unimaginable reach. Together, they made the tower feel like a point where the wider world entered London. The tower's polar bear was allowed to swim on a chain. The image is so startling that it sounds invented, yet it comes from the practical problem of keeping an Arctic predator in a medieval fortress. The animal needed food, exercise, and water. The Thames provided an answer, but freedom was impossible. So, it was controlled with a chain while allowed to enter the river. Imagine the scene from the riverbank. A huge white bear moving in the water below the walls, watched by people who may never have seen anything remotely like it. The bear was a royal possession, but also a public marvel. Its presence transformed the edge of the fortress into a stage where London met the far north. The arrangement also shows the limits of medieval animal care. People admired and displayed creatures they did not fully understand. Yet the record survives because the sight was unforgettable. Few images better capture the strangeness of the tower's living history. Londoners once paid to see lions near the fortress entrance. The experience must have been both thrilling and unsettling. Lions were not simply animals to earlier viewers. They were symbols of kingship, courage, danger, and biblical imagination. To stand near them in the capital, close enough to hear movement or smell the enclosure, was to encounter power made flesh. Charging visitors also turned royal possession into public entertainment. The fortress became a place where ordinary people could buy a glimpse of the extraordinary. This relationship between fear and curiosity is important. People were drawn to animals that could harm them because danger sharpened the spectacle. The location near the entrance made the encounter even more dramatic, since the animals became part of the tower's first impression. Before visitors reached deeper histories, they met living strength. The lions helped give the fortress its own mythology. They suggested that inside these walls, the king kept not only treasures and prisoners, but creatures of awe. Some tower animal bones were rediscovered during modern excavations. Archaeology can make old stories suddenly physical. Written records tell us animals lived at the fortress, but bones bring that history into the hand. When remains are uncovered, they help researchers understand what species were kept, how they lived, what they ate, and sometimes how they died. A bone can reveal age, health, injury, diet, and conditions of captivity. It can also correct assumptions made from documents alone. The rediscovery of animal remains reminds us that the menagerie was not a charming tale floating above reality. It involved bodies, enclosures, illness, feeding, waste, and death. Beneath the modern pathways lie traces of creatures that once made London stare in wonder. This is what makes excavation so powerful at the tower. It does not only recover masonry, it recovers lives that passed through the fortress without leaving words. A fragment of bone can reopen a vanished world of keepers, crowds, and captive animals. The Royal Menagerie eventually helped inspire London Zoo's creation. By the early 19th century, ideas about animals, science, and public display were changing. The old fortress collection no longer suited the growing interest in organized zoological study and more purpose-built surroundings. The movement of animals away from the tower marked a shift from royal spectacle toward a modern institution concerned with classification, observation, and public education. This did not mean attitudes became perfect overnight. It did mean the setting changed dramatically. A medieval fortress, built for defense and authority, could never fully become a scientific animal garden. Its cramped spaces belonged to another age. London Zoo represented a new ambition, where animals could be arranged, studied, and displayed in a different environment. The tower's menagerie therefore sits at an important turning point. It began as a royal display of rare creatures and helped lead, indirectly, toward a more systematic way of presenting the animal world to the public. The Lion Tower disappeared after the animals left the fortress. Not every part of the tower's history survives as standing stone. Some structures have vanished, leaving only records, traces, drawings, or archaeological clues. The Lion Tower once marked the presence of the Royal Menagerie near the western entrance. Its name preserved the importance of the animals that had lived there. After the collection was removed, the need for that building faded. Later changes to the site swept it away. This disappearance matters because it reminds us that the tower has never been frozen. Buildings were added, altered, damaged, demolished, and reinterpreted. What visitors see today is only one version of a place that has been constantly reshaped. The missing Lion Tower also invites imagination. People once approached the fortress with the sound and smell of great animals nearby. Now that sensory world is gone, its absence is part of the story. The tower is full of visible history, but also full of ghosts made from lost architecture. The Tower Mint made coins for England for centuries. Coinage is one of the most practical forms of royal authority. Every coin carried trust. It needed the right weight, the right metal, and the right official mark. By producing coins within the fortress, the Crown placed money-making under strong protection. This was essential because coinage could affect trade, wages, taxation, and confidence in government. A debased or unreliable currency could create anger far beyond the mint itself. Inside the tower, skilled workers turned metal into objects that passed through countless hands. A coin might begin under close royal supervision, then move into markets, taverns, ships, farms, and purses across the country. That journey made the monarch's authority part of daily exchange. The work was technical, noisy, and demanding. It involved furnaces, tools, dyes, metal supply, and constant oversight. The Tower Mint shows that the fortress did not only guard symbols of power, it helped manufacture power people could spend. Isaac Newton worked to reform coinage after tower minting declined. Newton is usually remembered for gravity, motion, light, and mathematics. Yet he also played a major role in England's financial life. As an official of the Royal Mint, he became involved in the difficult work of improving coinage during a period when clipping, counterfeiting, and inconsistency threatened public confidence. This was not a purely ceremonial post for him. He pursued counterfeiters with determination and helped bring administrative seriousness to the Mint's operations. His work belongs to a world where science, government, law, and money overlapped. The connection is fascinating because it places one of history's greatest thinkers near the practical machinery of state power. The problem was not abstract. Bad coins affected ordinary trade. A trustworthy currency required precision and enforcement. Newton's mint career reminds us that intelligence can reshape society in unexpected places. The man who explained celestial motion also helped defend the value of coins passing through human hands. Mint workers lived near furnaces, metal, and constant royal oversight. The world of coin production was physical and intense. Workers handled heat, tools, weights, blank pieces of metal, and engraved dies that stamped authority onto silver or gold. The environment demanded skill because small errors could matter greatly. Too much metal wasted royal resources. Too little metal undermined trust. Every stage required supervision, since coinage invited fraud from inside and outside the system. Life around the mint would have been full of sound and pressure. Hammering, weighing, melting, cooling, checking, and recording formed the rhythm of work. The fortress setting added another layer. These craftsmen were not making ordinary goods in an open market. They were producing the official money of the realm in a place designed for control. Their labor connected the crown to everyday transactions across England. Each coin carried the result of disciplined hands, hot metal, and strict measurement. Behind the simple object was a guarded industrial world. The tower once stored weapons for England's armies and ships. A fortress at the edge of London was an ideal place to gather and protect military supplies. Weapons needed secure storage because they represented both defense and danger. In loyal hands, they protected the realm. In hostile hands, they could threaten it. The tower's armories therefore formed a crucial part of state readiness. Swords, firearms, armor, gun parts, and other equipment could be held under royal control before being issued where needed. This role connected the fortress to wars fought far beyond its walls. A weapon stored there might later travel to a battlefield, a ship, or a garrison. The tower was not only a place where history happened locally, it supported events across the kingdom and overseas. Its storehouses turned the site into a logistical heart of power. The walls protected more than people and jewels. They guarded the material force by which rulers defended authority and projected it outward. The White Tower became home to the Royal Armouries collection. Inside the oldest great keep, weapons and armor gradually became more than stored equipment. They became a display of royal strength, military memory, and technical skill. The collection that grew there included objects made for battle, ceremony, training, and display. Some pieces were practical tools. Others were crafted to impress, shining with decoration that turned protection into theater. This matters because armor is never only metal. It is evidence of how people expected danger to arrive. A helmet shows what the head needed to survive. A breastplate shows how weapons were changing. A gun shows the moment war began to move away from muscle and toward chemistry. Placing these objects inside the White Tower gave them a powerful setting. Visitors walked through a building created by conquest while looking at the changing machinery of defense. The result was not just a collection of arms. It was a story of violence made orderly, preserved, and strangely beautiful. The line of kings displayed armor, like a royal power parade. This famous display was arranged to make monarchy look ancient, continuous, and heroic. Armored figures were mounted as if English kings had gathered in silent procession, each one connected to courage and command. It was not a neutral history lesson. It was political theater inside a fortress. The arrangement encouraged visitors to imagine a long chain of rulers defending the nation across the centuries. Some pieces were linked to kings more loosely than the display suggested, but the emotional effect was powerful. Armor has a way of making absence feel present. A hollow suit can seem almost alive when placed on horseback or shaped into a human stance. The display turned metal into memory, and memory into loyalty. People did not simply look at equipment. they looked at an ideal version of kinship, carefully staged under royal authority. The tower became a place where history was not only preserved, but performed. Henry VIII's armor reveals both grandeur and human vulnerability. Few objects make a famous monarch feel more physically real than armor made for his body. Portraits can flatter, chronicles can argue, but fitted metal records a person in a different way. It suggests height, breadth, posture, strength, and the changing shape of age. Henry wanted to appear magnificent, and his armor helped create that image. It could be polished, decorated, and engineered with astonishing care. Yet it also reminds us that even the most powerful king needed protection. Beneath all the splendor was a human body that could be wounded. That tension is what makes the object so compelling. The same ruler who reshaped religion, marriage, and succession still depended on craftsmen to shield him from steel. Armor turns monarchy from an idea into something bodily. It shows grandeur built around fragility. To stand before it is to meet not just a king, but a person trying to survive the world he commanded. Some armor at the tower was made for children. Tiny suits of armor can be unexpectedly moving because they collapse the distance between pageantry and childhood. These pieces were not always made for battle. Some were created for royal or noble boys who needed to be trained into the image of command from an early age. A child wearing armor was being dressed not only in metal, but in expectation. The object taught posture, identity, and destiny. It suggested that power was something to be inherited, practiced, and displayed long before adulthood. The craftsmanship could be exquisite, with small plates shaped to fit a growing body. Yet the sight is also unsettling. It reminds us that aristocratic childhood was often bound to duty. Play, ceremony, and preparation for violence could sit close together. In the tower, such armor speaks softly but powerfully. It shows how a ruling class reproduced itself, not only through bloodlines, but through clothing, training, and imagination. The tower held gunpowder and weapons during dangerous political moments. To store explosive material inside a major fortress was both practical and risky. Gunpowder changed the meaning of defense because it could strengthen royal force while also threatening catastrophe if mishandled. The tower's role as an arsenal made it important whenever the country feared rebellion, invasion, or unrest. Weapons could be gathered under supervision and issued when authority needed to act. But concentrated military supplies also made the site a target. Anyone controlling the fortress might gain access to the tools of violence. That is why the tower mattered during tense moments far beyond its walls. It was not just symbolic. It had real strategic value. Its magazines and storehouses connected decisions made in council rooms to force that could be used in streets, fields, and ports. The presence of gunpowder added a new danger to an old castle. Stone had once resisted siege engines. Now it had to coexist with controlled fire. Its walls were strengthened whenever London seemed close to unrest. The tower often changed because fear changed. When rulers sensed danger in the capital, the fortress became a place to reinforce, repair, and prepare. London was powerful, wealthy, and unpredictable. Its support could strengthen a monarch, but its anger could become a threat. Strengthening the walls was therefore more than routine maintenance. It was a political response made visible in stone. Every improvement suggested that authority expected trouble, or at least wanted to be ready for it. Fortifications reveal what people feared. A thicker wall speaks of assault. A repaired gate speaks of control. A guarded approach speaks of suspicion. The tower stood close enough to the city to influence it, yet separate enough to resist it. That uneasy relationship shaped much of its history. The fortress was never simply outside London. it watched London. When the mood of the city darkened, the walls became a royal answer before words were spoken. The tower's moat became unhealthy before it was finally drained. What began as a defensive feature eventually became a public nuisance. The moat depended on water movement and maintenance, and over time, it could trap filth, waste, and foul smells. As London grew around the fortress, the conditions became harder to ignore. A medieval obstacle had become an urban health problem. This transformation is fascinating because it shows how a building can outlive the world that first made sense of it. In an age of siege warfare, a moat helped protect the walls. In a crowded modern city, stagnant water could become dangerous and unpleasant. The decision to drain it belonged to a changing understanding of hygiene, engineering, and public space. It also altered the appearance of the tower forever. A once threatening barrier became dry ground. The fortress did not lose its history, but one of its old defenses was turned into something the modern city could live beside. Victorian engineers transformed the old moat into dry ground. The work reflected a 19th century confidence that old problems could be solved through planning, drainage, and practical intervention. Engineers reshaped the area around the walls, removing the unhealthy water and creating the open, dry space visitors recognize today. This was not simply tidying. It changed how people experienced the fortress. A wet barrier had once separated the tower from approach. After drainage, the site became more legible and accessible as a historic monument. The Victorians were deeply interested in the past, but they were also willing to alter it. They restored, interpreted, cleaned, and sometimes reinvented medieval places according to their own values. At the tower, their work helped turn a functioning fortress into a place of national memory. The dry moat made room for ceremony, movement, and later, public installations. It also shows how preservation is never entirely passive. Each generation decides which version of history it wants to reveal. Tower Bridge was built much later than the fortress beside it. Many visitors assume the two landmarks belong to the same age because they stand so naturally together. In truth, the bridge is a 19th century creation designed to solve the traffic needs of a growing imperial city. Its medieval style was carefully chosen to harmonize with the older fortress nearby. That choice says a great deal about London's relationship with its own image. The city needed modern engineering, but it wanted that engineering to look historic in such a sensitive location. The result is a bridge that feels ancient while relying on industrial design and mechanical ingenuity. Its bascules could lift for river traffic, while its towers gave the skyline a romantic shape. Beside the tower, it creates a powerful illusion of continuity. Yet the contrast is just as interesting as the harmony. One structure was born from conquest. The other was born from congestion. Together, they show a city that keeps layering new needs over old symbols. The tower survived beside a city that changed beyond recognition. Around the fortress, London transformed from a medieval walled city into a vast modern capital. Streets widened. Fires destroyed neighborhoods. Docks rose and declined. Railways arrived. Glass and steel climbed into the skyline. Through all of this, the tower remained in place, not unchanged, but still recognizable. That survival gives it extraordinary power. It acts almost like a fixed point against which the city's restlessness can be measured. Generations who would barely understand each other's London could all identify those walls. The fortress has watched languages shift, clothing change, technologies appear, and governments evolve. Yet it has never become invisible. Its age gives the modern city depth. Its presence reminds us that London is not one place, but many places stacked together in time. To stand there today is to sense the speed of change, and the stubbornness of stone. Few sights make history feel so physically present. Elizabeth I entered the Tower as a frightened prisoner. Before she became one of England's most celebrated monarchs, Elizabeth experienced the fortress from the other side of power. During the reign of her half-sister Mary, she was suspected of involvement in rebellion and brought there under guard. For a young woman with royal blood, the danger was extreme. Her mother had died within the Tower's precincts, and Elizabeth knew what accusation could mean. The psychological weight of that arrival is hard to overstate. She was not merely entering a prison. She was entering a place already stained by her own family's history. Every question asked of her could carry political consequence. Every rumor could become lethal. Her survival required caution, intelligence, and emotional control. This episode matters because it reveals the uncertainty before her triumph. The future queen once stood vulnerable inside walls that later generations would associate with her dynasty's drama. Her greatness was not inevitable. It was survived. She later returned as queen before her coronation procession. Her return transformed the meaning of the fortress in her life. The same place that had once held her under suspicion became part of her public rise to sovereignty. Before coronation, monarchs traditionally lodged at the Tower before moving through London toward Westminster. For Elizabeth, that pattern carried unusual emotional force. She came back not as a captive, but as the recognized ruler. The city that had watched Tudor danger now witnessed Tudor renewal. Her movement from the fortress into public ceremony helped turn personal survival into national spectacle. It also showed how quickly the Tower's meaning could change depending on status. Stone does not move, but power changes the way a person passes through it. Elizabeth's story gives the site a remarkable reversal. The walls that once enclosed her fear later framed her legitimacy. That contrast makes her coronation journey more than pageantry. It becomes a lesson in how history can turn on a single life. Lady Jane Grey was imprisoned after ruling for only days. Her story is one of the most tragic examples of how dangerous royal blood could be. Jane was young, educated, and placed at the center of a political plan she did not control. After Edward VI died, supporters proclaimed her queen in an attempt to prevent Mary Tudor from taking the throne. The scheme collapsed with astonishing speed. Mary gathered support, and Jane's brief claim became a charge that could not be ignored. Imprisonment followed, and the Tower became the setting for a life narrowed by other people's ambition. What makes her case so gripping is the mismatch between her age and the scale of the crisis around her. She became a queen in name, then a prisoner, then the symbol of innocence caught in dynastic conflict. Her fate reminds us that the Tudor succession was not a clean line of inheritance. It was a dangerous contest where even reluctance could not guarantee safety. Thomas More faced imprisonment there for refusing Henry's demands. More's fall shows that the Tower could hold conscience as well as conspiracy. He had been one of the most respected minds in Europe, a lawyer, scholar, statesman, and writer whose reputation extended far beyond England. Yet under Henry VIII, silence itself could become dangerous if it suggested resistance to royal supremacy. More would not accept the king's position in the way required. That refusal brought him into conflict with a monarch determined to control religious and political obedience. Inside the Tower, the issue was not military rebellion. It was principle, language, and the limits of authority over belief. His imprisonment became a battle over what a person could be forced to say. That is why his story still resonates. The fortress held his body, but the real struggle concerned conscience. In an age when law, faith, and kingship were tightly bound together, a refusal of words could carry the weight of treason. Guy Fawkes was questioned at the Tower after the Gunpowder Plot. After the plan to destroy Parliament was uncovered, the prisoner taken from the cellar became the focus of urgent investigation. The authorities needed names, networks, intentions, and proof. The Tower was the place where that pressure could be applied under state control. Fawkes had been caught close to barrels of gunpowder, but the plot was larger than one man. It involved fear of religious repression, desperate planning, and a willingness to use spectacular violence against the political order. His questioning became part of the government's effort to expose the conspiracy and prevent further danger. The case left a mark on national memory because it combined secrecy, explosives, Parliament, and the monarch in one dramatic crisis. The Tower's role in the aftermath shows how the fortress functioned during emergencies. It was where the state brought people it believed might unlock hidden threats. In that sense, interrogation was another form of defense. Sir Walter Raleigh wrote and studied during his long confinement. Not every captive passed the time in silence or despair. Raleigh turned imprisonment into a strange workshop of intellect. He had been a soldier, explorer, courtier, and favorite, but political fortune shifted, and the Tower became his enforced world. During his long confinement, he wrote, researched, and reflected on history with remarkable ambition. The result was not merely a way to pass time. It was an attempt to remain mentally active and publicly meaningful while physically contained. His case shows how imprisonment could differ dramatically depending on rank and circumstance. A prominent prisoner might have access to books, visitors, writing materials, and enough space to think. Yet privilege did not erase uncertainty. Raleigh's mind could travel through ancient kingdoms and distant events while his body remained under guard. That contrast makes his confinement especially compelling. The Tower restricted his movement, but it could not fully prevent him from building a world on the page. Raleigh grew plants in a garden inside the Tower walls. The detail is small, but it changes the emotional texture of his captivity. A garden inside a fortress suggests patience, observation, and a search for order under constraint. Raleigh had lived a life connected with voyages, court ambition, and stories of faraway lands. Within the Tower, plants offered a different kind of exploration. They could be tended, watched, and studied within a limited space. A garden also gave rhythm to days that might otherwise blur together. Growth became a measure of time. Soil, leaves, and weather created a living counterpoint to stone and surveillance. This does not make imprisonment romantic. It makes it more human. People adapt to confinement by creating routines and meanings where they can. For Raleigh, cultivation sat beside scholarship as a way to keep his identity alive. The image of a prisoner tending plants within royal walls reveals a quieter struggle for dignity. Prisoners carved names, prayers, and symbols into Tower stone. When people are cut off from the future, they often try to leave proof that they existed. The walls of the Tower preserve that impulse in a deeply moving form. Captives scratched, carved, and shaped marks into stone with whatever tools or patience they could manage. Some inscriptions are formal and carefully designed. Others feel urgent, devotional, or painfully personal. A name could become an act of survival. A prayer could become a whispered appeal beyond the reach of judges. A symbol could hold loyalty, faith, family, or coded meaning. These carvings matter because they are not official records written by the powerful. They are traces made by people waiting under pressure. Many did not know whether they would be released, forgotten, or executed. The stone became their witness. Long after voices vanished, the marks remained. They turn walls into testimony, and they make captivity feel startlingly close. Beauchamp Tower graffiti still carries voices from Tudor captivity. This particular tower contains some of the most haunting prisoner inscriptions in the fortress. They are not random scratches. Many were made by people caught in the religious and political struggles of the Tudor age. Their carvings show care, learning, and emotional force. Some include family emblems or sacred references. Others display names arranged with dignity, as if the prisoner were trying to preserve status when everything else had been stripped away. The survival of these marks allows modern visitors to meet captivity at human scale. A political crisis can sound abstract until a person's hand appears in stone. Then the past becomes intimate. The carvings also revealed time itself. They required hours, perhaps days, of effort. That effort suggests waiting, fear, endurance, and the need to be remembered. In Beauchamp Tower, history does not arrive only through kings and verdicts. It arrives through prisoners carving identity into the walls around them. Some prisoners brought servants, furniture, and books into captivity. Tower imprisonment was not one single experience. Rank could transform confinement dramatically. Wealthy or important captives might live in rooms rather than bare cells, with personal belongings and attendants to help preserve their status. They could read, write, receive food from outside, and maintain parts of their former household life. This seems surprising because modern imagination often pictures prison as uniform hardship. In earlier centuries, punishment and custody were shaped by class. A noble prisoner was still dangerous or disgraced, but they might be treated according to their social position. That did not remove fear. A comfortable chamber could still lead to execution. A furnished room could still be locked. The contrast makes the tower especially complex. It could be both residence and prison, both privilege and terror. A captive might dine well while waiting for a decision that would destroy them. Comfort did not mean safety. Sometimes it only made uncertainty more refined. Wealthy captives could sometimes make prison surprisingly comfortable. Money could soften the edges of confinement in ways that seem remarkable today. A prisoner with resources might pay for better meals, warmer bedding, extra servants, or improved rooms. Influence could affect access to visitors and correspondence. Social rank could make keepers more cautious about treatment. This created a strange world where captivity was negotiable within limits. The door was still locked, and the crown still held power, but daily conditions could vary widely. Such arrangements reveal how early prisons often functioned through fees, relationships, and status rather than a standard system. The tower was especially suited to this complexity because many of its captives were high-born or politically significant. Their lives inside might include conversation, study, and carefully managed comfort. Yet the underlying anxiety remained sharp. A soft bed did not change the meaning of a warrant. A fine meal did not promise release. Luxury and dread could occupy the same room. Ordinary prisoners often faced a far harsher tower experience. Those without rank, money, or powerful friends could expect a very different reality. Their confinement might involve poorer rooms, limited comfort, stricter treatment, and less attention from officials unless they were useful to an investigation. The difference exposes the unequal world the fortress served. Status shaped nearly everything, even the experience of being locked away. An important prisoner might be watched carefully because of political value. A lesser prisoner could be handled with much less concern. Conditions depended on period, offense, keeper, and circumstance, but disadvantage made suffering more likely. This matters because famous names dominate tower history, and fame can distort the picture. The most documented captives often had the means to leave letters or attract attention. Others passed through with fewer traces. Their fear was no less real. Their cold, hunger, or isolation simply made less noise in the records. The tower's history belongs to them too, even when their names are harder to recover. Only a small number of people were executed inside the tower. The fortress has such a dark reputation that many imagine constant executions within its walls. The truth is more selective and, in some ways, more revealing. Death inside the precincts was usually reserved for people of especially high rank or unusual political sensitivity. That made the location itself part of the messic. A private execution avoided the noise and unpredictability of a large crowd. It could preserve a degree of dignity while still removing a dangerous figure. The small number does not make the place less serious. It shows how carefully status shaped the rituals of death. Most condemned prisoners associated with the tower met their end elsewhere. Those who died inside were exceptions, and that exception gave the act a particular force. The quietness of the setting could make it more chilling. Not every tragedy needed a crowd. Sometimes power preferred silence, control, and a closed gate. Tower Green was reserved for especially high-ranking executions. This space carries a weight far greater than its size. It was not an ordinary killing ground. It was used when the condemned person's rank made a public execution difficult, dangerous, or politically delicate. The setting offered privacy within a royal fortress, away from the vast crowds that gathered outside on Tower Hill. That privacy did not remove the meaning of the act. It intensified it. A death on Tower Green suggested that the person was too important for an ordinary end. The witnesses were limited. The movements were controlled. The ceremony was contained within the walls of authority. For those who walked there, the closeness of the place must have been overwhelming. There was no long journey through streets, no roaring multitude, only the fortress itself and the officials required to complete the sentence. Today, the space feels calm, but its history asks us to remember how status could shape even the final moments of life. Most Tower prisoners condemned to die were taken to Tower Hill. Outside the fortress, a different kind of death awaited many condemned prisoners. Tower Hill allowed large crowds to gather, which turned punishment into public warning. Executions there were not only about ending a life, they were about being seen. The authorities wanted spectators to understand the consequences of treason, rebellion, or political failure. For prisoners, the short journey out of the fortress must have been dreadful. The walls that had confined them gave way to open air, but not freedom. Instead, they met the noise and attention of the city. Public execution carried humiliation as well as fear, because the condemned person's final moments became part of collective memory. Speeches from the scaffold could matter, since last words were listened to, repeated, and sometimes printed. Tower Hill therefore became an extension of the fortress's power. The tower held the prisoner. The hill delivered the message to London. The scaffold site remains one of the quietest places inside. Today, the marked place of execution invites a very different response from the crowds and politics that once surrounded it. Visitors often lower their voices there without being told. The space encourages reflection because it reduces history to a final human scale. A person stood here. A decision became irreversible here. Ambition, fear, accusation, and loyalty all ended in a few controlled movements. The stillness matters because it offers a counterweight to the tower's more spectacular attractions. Jewels glitter, armor impresses, ravens entertain. But this place asks for attention of another kind. It reminds us that the fortress was not only a stage for power, it was also a place where power touched the body. The memorial quality of the site helps modern visitors approach a painful past without turning it into entertainment. its quietness is not empty. It is full of names, choices, and endings that still demand care. Anne Boleyn was executed by a swordsman brought from France. The choice of method was unusual in England and reveals the grim choreography surrounding her death. Beheading with an axe could be uncertain, especially if the executioner lacked skill or the blow failed. A sword handled by someone trained for the task was considered swifter and more precise. Bringing a specialist from abroad suggests that even in condemnation, her rank required a controlled and carefully managed end. The detail is chilling because it shows planning in advance. While legal proceedings moved forward, arrangements for death were already being made. Anne reportedly maintained composure, and the execution itself became famous for its speed. Yet the presence of a foreign swordsman also added to the scene's strangeness. It separated her final moment from ordinary English practice. The crown had stripped her of queenship, but not of significance. Everything about the event had to be handled with symbolic care, because the woman dying had once worn the crown. Catherine Howard also met her fate within the Tower precincts. Her story shows how the dangers of Henry VIII's court did not end with one fallen queen. Catherine was much younger than the king, and her rise placed her in a world where personal conduct could become a matter of state. Accusations about her past and behavior led to a swift collapse in fortune. The Tower became the last setting of that collapse, as it had for Anne Boleyn before her. The repetition is one reason her fate feels so haunting. Another queen, another accusation, another death within the fortress. Yet Catherine's story is distinct because it exposes the vulnerability of youth in a court obsessed with honor, succession, and control over female reputation. She was not a political mastermind. She was a young woman trapped in structures that could be merciless. Her execution added another layer to the Tower's Tudor memory. It became a place where queenship could turn from splendor to terror with terrifying speed. The Tower became deeply linked with Henry VIII's reign. His rule reshaped England, and the fortress became one of the places where that transformation turned personal. The break with Rome, the struggle over succession, and the politics of marriage all sent shockwaves through the Tower's chambers. People close to the king could rise to astonishing heights, then fall into confinement with shocking speed. The fortress held courtiers, churchmen, nobles, and queens, whose lives became tangled with his decisions. This is why the Tower feels so inseparable from the Tudor imagination. Henry's reign made private relationships into matters of national consequence. Loyalty had to be spoken correctly. Marriage could alter religion. Bloodline could become danger. The Tower received the human cost of those pressures. It was not the source of Henry's power, but it became one of its instruments. When we think of his reign, the fortress stands nearby because so many of its crises ended behind those walls. The Bloody Tower gained its name from dark Tudor associations. Names can reshape how a place is remembered. This tower did not begin with such a grim title, but later history attached darkness to it so strongly that the name endured. Its reputation became linked with imprisonment, suspicion, and especially the unresolved story of the young princes. A name like that guides the imagination before a visitor even enters. It tells people to expect dread. It turns architecture into accusation. The power of the title lies in how it compresses uncertainty into a single phrase. We may not know every truth about what happened within those walls, but the name insists that something terrible belongs there. Tudor history was especially skilled at creating these charged associations because so much depended on legitimacy, inheritance, and public belief. The tower became a container for fear and rumor. Its stones did not change, but the story attached to them did. Sometimes history is preserved not only in records, but in names people cannot forget. The princes in the tower were last seen during Richard's reign. Their disappearance sits at the centre of one of England's most gripping royal puzzles. Edward V and his younger brother Richard were placed in the fortress during a crisis of succession, when their uncle took control of the government and soon became King Richard III. At first, the boys were visible enough to be noticed. Then, sightings faded. That vanishing is what makes the story so powerful. There was no public trial, no confirmed funeral, and no final document that settles the matter. Instead, history leaves us with a narrowing silence. The boys were not merely children. They were claimants whose existence affected the legitimacy of a king. In a world where bloodline could decide power, their survival mattered dangerously. Their absence became political evidence, moral accusation, and national mystery all at once. The tower's walls did not speak, and that silence has kept the question alive for centuries. Bones found near the White Tower deepened the royal mystery. In the 17th century, workers discovered the remains of 2 children buried near a staircase in the fortress. The find immediately stirred thoughts of the missing royal brothers, because the location seemed so suggestive. Yet bones do not answer every question simply by appearing. Their age, identity, and circumstances have been debated for generations. They were placed in Westminster Abbey by royal order, which gave them solemn treatment but did not end uncertainty. Modern science might offer clues, but questions of permission, evidence, and interpretation remain sensitive. The discovery made the mystery feel more physical. Before that, the vanished boys lived mainly in chronicles, rumors, and political memory. Afterward, people could imagine small bodies hidden within the very fortress connected to their disappearance. Whether the remains truly belonged to them or not, the find intensified the emotional power of the story. It turned suspicion into something that seemed almost touchable. Shakespeare helped make the tower's darkest stories famous worldwide. History often reaches the public through drama, and few dramatists shaped royal memory more powerfully. In his version of Richard III, the fortress became part of a larger story about ambition, corruption, and murdered innocence. The play did not create every accusation, but it gave them unforgettable shape. Audiences who knew little about 15th century politics could still feel the force of a villain plotting his way to the crown. That is the danger and brilliance of theatre. It can make an interpretation feel more real than the surviving evidence. Once a story is performed again and again, it settles into imagination. The tower's reputation benefited from that dark energy. It became not just a historical site, but a stage in the mind. Shakespeare helped carry its shadows far beyond London. For many people around the world, the emotional truth of the tower began not in archives, but in performance. The tower's reputation is partly history and partly powerful storytelling. The fortress earned its fame through real events, yet memory has enlarged them. Some prisoners truly suffered there. Some royal dramas did unfold within its walls. Some deaths did mark its ground. But over time, selected stories grew louder than others. Visitors arrived wanting terror, romance, mystery, and royal scandal. Writers supplied atmosphere. Guides repeated memorable details. Artists painted scenes that made the past feel vivid. The result is a reputation built from fact and interpretation together. That does not make it false. It makes it human. People rarely remember old places as balanced ledgers. They remember them as stories with moods, characters, and turning points. The tower became especially powerful because it could hold so many meanings at once. It was a fortress, but also a stage. It was a palace, but also a warning. Its legends survive because they are anchored in enough truth to feel possible. Medieval bishops sometimes became prisoners within its royal walls. In the Middle Ages, religious office did not place a person outside politics. Bishops could be royal advisors, landholders, diplomats, administrators, and power brokers. That made them valuable allies, but also dangerous opponents. When conflict sharpened between church and crown, even high-ranking clergy could find themselves under guard. Their imprisonment carried special tension because they represented spiritual authority as well as worldly influence. The king who confined a bishop was not only punishing a man, he was testing the boundary between sacred office and royal command. The tower's walls therefore held disputes that reached beyond ordinary crime. They contained arguments about loyalty, privilege, law, and divine authority. For a medieval audience, such captivity could be shocking. A bishop belonged near altars and councils, not locked inside a fortress. Yet the tower shows us how closely religion and politics were woven together. Even sacred rank could become vulnerable when power felt threatened. The tower also held Scottish kings and French noble captives. The fortress was not only a prison for English political drama, it also received important foreign prisoners whose capture carried diplomatic weight. A defeated ruler or noble could become a bargaining tool, a sign of victory, and a living piece of negotiation. Holding such captives near the center of English power made sense. The crown could watch them closely while reminding visitors of military success. These prisoners were usually not treated like common criminals. Their rank mattered, even in confinement. They might have servants, correspondents, and conditions suited to their status, because mistreating them could damage future negotiations. Their presence reveals the tower's international role. It was part of a world of wars, truces, ransoms, marriages, and alliances. A captive king inside the fortress turned stone rooms into instruments of foreign policy. The tower could hold not only enemies of the monarch, but also pieces of Europe's political chessboard. King John kept important records and valuables inside the fortress. Royal government depended on memory, and memory often meant documents. Charters, accounts, legal records, and financial instruments could define rights, debts, lands, and obligations. Keeping such materials safe was essential because a destroyed or stolen record could alter power. King John's reign is often remembered for conflict and mistrust, but it also shows how much administration mattered to monarchy. The tower offered a secure place for objects and papers that supported rule. Valuables could impress, reward, or fund action. Records could prove what the king claimed. Together, they formed the practical skeleton of authority. This side of the tower is less dramatic than executions or duels, but it is just as important. Governments do not survive on spectacle alone. They rely on storage, order, and evidence. Behind the fortress's famous walls, royal power was not only defended with weapons, it was preserved in written proof. The fortress guarded London's river traffic as well as royalty. Its position beside the Thames gave it a role that reached beyond its walls. The river was London's great working artery. Goods, people, messages, and military supplies moved along it every day. A stronghold placed near that movement could observe and influence the flow of the city's life. This mattered because medieval and early modern London depended heavily on water transport. Roads were often difficult, crowded, or slow. The Thames connected the capital to the sea and to inland routes. A royal fortress on its bank made authority visible to merchants, sailors, officials, and foreign visitors. It also meant that the crown could respond quickly to threats arriving by water. The tower therefore watched one of the most important approaches to the city. It was not simply guarding royal bodies or stored treasure. It was guarding movement itself, and movement was the lifeblood of London's power. Its position made it both a castle and a political statement. Some buildings are useful. Some are symbolic. The tower was deliberately both. It stood at a strategic point near the river and the city wall, but its placement also communicated dominance. A castle in the countryside might control a road or region. This fortress confronted a capital. It told London that royal force had a permanent address within sight of commerce and government. That dual purpose explains much of its long history. The tower was never only a defensive structure waiting for attack. It was a daily reminder of who held ultimate authority. People could see it while going about ordinary business. Foreign envoys could understand its message before entering royal negotiation. Rebels could measure their chances against its walls. The site turned geography into politics. It used stone to speak without needing proclamation. In that sense, the tower's location was as important as its masonry. Power had been placed exactly where it would be noticed. The tower once controlled access through the city's eastern edge. In a walled city, gates and approaches mattered enormously. They shaped movement, defense, trade, and surveillance. The tower's position near London's eastern side gave it influence over a vulnerable and important zone. Anyone approaching from that direction encountered royal power before fully entering the city's life. This helped the fortress act as a hinge between London and the wider world beyond its walls. It could support defense, monitor traffic, and provide a strong royal presence at a critical edge. The eastern position also mattered because cities are not only defended from outside enemies, they are managed from within. A fortress near an entrance could remind residents that the king's authority stood beside the city's own freedoms and institutions. That tension was central to London's relationship with the crown. The tower did not simply protect the capital. It also watched it from the threshold. Its stones marked where urban independence met royal command. Roman walls shaped parts of the tower's later defenses. The site's history reaches deeper than the Norman conquest. London had been a Roman city, and parts of its old defensive circuits survived long enough to influence later construction. Medieval builders were practical. If strong ancient walls existed, they could be reused, absorbed, or adapted. This means the tower stands within a landscape already marked by empire before the Normans arrived. The fortress did not begin on empty ground. It inherited lines of defense from a city more than 1,000 years old. That layered history makes the place even more fascinating. Roman stonework, medieval ambition, royal expansion, and modern preservation all overlap. A visitor may see a castle and think first of kings, but below that story lies another London, shaped by soldiers, merchants, and administrators from the ancient world. The tower's later strength was partly built on older strength. Its foundations belonged to a city that had already learned the value of walls. The tower's stones contain layers from nearly every English era. A building that survives for centuries becomes a physical archive. The tower has been repaired, expanded, damaged, cleaned, restored, and reinterpreted so many times that its fabric holds evidence of changing needs. Different stones, brickwork, windows, roofs, and surfaces can tell stories to those who know how to read them. Some changes were made for defense. Others improved comfort, storage, display, or public access. This layered quality is what separates a living historic site from a single moment preserved in isolation. The tower is not purely Norman, Tudor, Victorian, or modern. It is all of these at once, joined unevenly and visibly. Each generation left marks according to its fears, tastes, and technologies. That is why the fortress rewards close attention. A wall may look solid and simple from a distance, but up close it can reveal centuries of decision. The stones are not silent. They record change in material form. Archaeologists still uncover traces of lost buildings and vanished lives. The tower's history is not finished simply because it is famous. Beneath paths, courtyards, and later structures lie fragments of earlier arrangements. Archaeology can reveal foundations, drains, objects, bones, pottery, tools, and traces of daily activity that written records ignored. These discoveries matter because official history often follows kings, queens, and major prisoners. Excavation can recover the world of servants, workers, guards, craftsmen, animals, and residents who made the fortress function. A small object can open a human story. A shard of pottery can suggest eating habits. A wall line can show how movement through the site once worked. A discarded item can feel more intimate than a royal document. Archaeologists bring patience to places already crowded with legend, and their work often complicates what people think they know. The ground beneath the tower is an archive that still has pages sealed shut. Every careful dig may change the story again. The chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula holds famous buried figures. Inside the fortress stands a chapel whose calm appearance hides an extraordinary concentration of history. It became the burial place for several people whose lives ended under the pressure of politics, accusation, and royal command. The contrast is powerful. The chapel is a place of worship, but it is also a place where the aftermath of state violence was gathered. Burial there could be practical, since execution inside or near the tower required swift handling of bodies. Yet over time, those graves gained immense symbolic weight. People whose public lives had been shattered were placed within sacred walls, close to the authority that had condemned them. The chapel invites a different kind of attention from the grander spaces of the fortress. It asks visitors to think not only about spectacle, but about remains, memory, and dignity. The people buried there were once central to national crises. Now their stories rest under a roof built for prayer. Anne Boleyn and Lady Jane Grey rest inside the chapel. Their graves bring two Tudor tragedies into the same sacred space, though their lives were very different. Anne had been queen, mother of a future monarch, and a central figure in England's religious break with Rome. Jane had been placed on the throne during a succession crisis and lost that dangerous title almost immediately. Both became victims of political circumstances that made their existence intolerable to those in power. Their burial in the chapel gives the tower's history a deep emotional focus. These were not distant names on a page. They were bodies carried from execution into consecrated ground. The proximity of their resting places reminds us how quickly Tudor politics could consume even the highest-born women. It also gives the chapel unusual force for visitors. The space does not need dramatic decoration to be powerful. Its significance comes from knowing who lies there, and from sensing how ambition, belief, and bloodline ended in silence. The chapel still serves the tower's living community today. Despite its famous burials, the chapel is not merely a memorial. It remains a place of worship for the people connected with the fortress. That continuing use changes its meaning. It is not sealed off as a relic of Tudor tragedy. It is part of the present life of the tower. Services, ceremonies, and community moments connect modern residents with generations who worshipped within the same precinct. This continuity is deeply important. Historic buildings can become frozen when they are treated only as exhibits. A chapel that still serves a congregation keeps a different kind of authenticity. Its sacred function remains active. People gather there not only to remember, but to pray, mark time, and belong. The presence of famous graves adds gravity, yet daily use adds warmth and life. The chapel therefore holds two truths together. It preserves some of the tower's most solemn memories, and it continues to serve people who call the fortress home. the tower bells once marked routines for guards and prisoners. Sound shaped life inside the fortress in ways that are easy to forget. Before modern clocks were everywhere, bells helped organize time, duty, worship, warning, and movement. Their ringing could mark the beginning or end of routines. For guards, a bell might mean work, watchfulness, or assembly. For prisoners, it could measure another day of waiting. Sound travels differently through enclosed spaces. A bell heard inside stone walls can feel both practical and emotional. It tells people that authority controls the hours. It turns time into something public. The same sound might comfort one listener and unsettle another, depending on their situation. This is why bells matter in the history of places like the Tower. They remind us that the past was not silent. It had rhythms, signals, footsteps, doors, voices, and metal notes carrying across courtyards. The fortress was experienced through the ear as much as through the eye. The fortress has witnessed coronations, rebellions, imprisonments, and royal ceremonies. Its history is astonishing because it touches so many different kinds of power. Some events were planned with care and public meaning. Others were moments of fear, crisis, or sudden reversal. The same walls could frame celebration in one generation and confinement in another. Their range gives the Tower its depth. It was never a single-purpose monument with one emotional tone. It belonged to the machinery of monarchy at many levels. It could protect a ruler before a sacred ceremony. It could hold a person accused of threatening the state. It could store objects needed for public ritual. It could stand ready when unrest seemed possible. Each role changed how people felt when they approached it. To some, it promised security. To others, it meant suspicion. To many today, it offers fascination. The Tower endures because it gathered so many functions of authority into one place, and then kept the traces. The Tower held prisoners during both world wars. Modern warfare did not make the ancient fortress irrelevant. During the great conflicts of the 20th century, it again became a place of detention, though under very different circumstances from its medieval or Tudor past. The prisoners held there belonged to a world of espionage fears, enemy nations, emergency powers, and global conflict. This gives the Tower a remarkable continuity. It had once held nobles accused of treason and religious plotters suspected of conspiracy. Centuries later, it still served the state in moments when security seemed urgent. The setting must have felt strange to modern captives. They were caught in contemporary war, yet confined within walls associated with kings, queens, and ancient punishments. The use of the Tower during both wars shows how symbolic places can regain practical purpose when crisis returns. History did not simply sit behind glass. Under wartime pressure, the old fortress briefly became part of national defense again. Rudolf Hess was briefly held there during the Second World War. His arrival connected the Tower to one of the strangest episodes of the war. Hess, a senior Nazi figure, flew alone to Scotland in 1941 on an unauthorized mission that has puzzled historians ever since. After his capture, he was moved through secure custody, and the Tower became one of the places associated with his detention. The significance lies partly in contrast. A fortress built by a medieval conqueror briefly held a prisoner from the most destructive modern conflict in history. Hess represented a regime that threatened Europe on an industrial scale, yet he passed through a site already thick with older stories of treason, captivity, and state danger. The episode was brief, but it added a 20th century layer to the Tower's long prison history. It reminds us that the building's role did not end with Tudor queens or early modern conspirators. Even modern war found a use for ancient walls. The Cray twins were among the Tower's last prisoners. Before they became notorious figures in London criminal history, Ronnie and Reggie Cray passed through the fortress in a very different context. They were held there in the 1950s while serving in the army and facing military discipline. This is a surprising detail because most people connect the tower with royal prisoners or wartime detainees, not future gangsters from the East End. Their brief confinement helps close the long story of the tower as a working place of imprisonment. It also links the fortress to modern London in an unexpected way. The Crays belonged to a city of post-war streets, clubs, crime, celebrity, and fear. The tower belonged to castles, monarchs, and state authority. For a moment, those worlds touched. The episode reminds us that history is not always tidy. Famous places continue to collect odd final chapters. The tower's prison story did not end with a crown, but with a modern urban legend. Bombing damaged parts of the tower during the Blitz. During the Second World War, London endured terrifying aerial attacks, and the fortress was not spared. Bombs damaged buildings within the complex, proving that age and fame offered no protection from modern warfare. The Blitz brought a new kind of threat to a site designed for older forms of attack. Medieval walls had been built with siege and assault in mind, not high explosives falling from aircraft. The damage connected the tower with the suffering of the wider city. It was no longer only a symbol of national history. It was part of a living capital under fire. Repairs after the bombing became acts of recovery, not just conservation. The scars of war added another layer to the site's already complex fabric. Visitors who see the fortress today encounter a place that survived not by remaining untouched, but by being restored after danger. Its endurance includes wounds as well as strength. The White Tower survived wartime London with astonishing resilience. The survival of the Great Keep through the bombing of the capital carries enormous symbolic force. This was the oldest and most recognizable core of the fortress, a building that had already stood for centuries before aircraft existed. Around it, London burned, rebuilt, and endured nights of fear. The keep's continued presence became part of a broader story of survival. It had been created by conquest, adapted by monarchs, surrounded by changing city life, and then tested by modern war. Its thick stone walls were not invincible in any absolute sense, yet they remained standing. That endurance matters because people often attach hope to buildings that outlast catastrophe. When familiar landmarks survive, they help a city imagine its own recovery. The White Tower's resilience did not erase wartime loss, but it offered continuity amid destruction. It stood as proof that some parts of the nation's memory could pass through fire and remain. The moat was used for wartime growing during food shortages. War changed the purpose of land everywhere, even around ancient monuments. During the Second World War, food production became a national necessity. Open spaces were turned toward practical use, and the dry moat around the tower was no exception. Growing food there created a striking contrast. A space once associated with defense and separation became a place of cultivation. The old military landscape joined the home front effort. This detail is fascinating because it shows how ordinary needs can transform famous sites. The fortress did not stand apart from wartime Britain as a museum piece. It adapted to the pressures faced by the country. Vegetables in the moat may sound humble beside crowns and armor, but they speak powerfully about resilience. Survival during war depended not only on soldiers and weapons, but on food, labor, and shared discipline. The tower's old ditch became part of that effort, turning history into harvest. Ceramic poppies once filled the moat in a vast remembrance display. In 2014, the dry moat became the setting for one of the most moving public artworks in modern Britain. Thousands upon thousands of red ceramic poppies were installed to mark the centenary of the First World War's outbreak. Each flower represented a British or colonial military death during the conflict. The visual effect was overwhelming, not because it relied on complexity, but because repetition turned individual loss into a vast field of memory. The tower's setting gave the display extra force. A fortress associated with national power was surrounded by symbols of sacrifice. Visitors could see beauty and grief at the same time. The work made numbers feel physical. It helped people grasp the scale of loss without reducing the dead to statistics. The moat, once designed to keep enemies away, became a place where the public gathered in remembrance. For a brief period, the tower stood within a sea of red. The tower became a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its global importance. This recognition places the fortress among places considered significant not only to one nation, but to humanity's shared cultural inheritance. The designation reflects its exceptional survival, its architectural importance, and its deep connection with monarchy, governance, and public memory. It also acknowledges that the tower is understood far beyond Britain. People around the world recognize its silhouette and stories. World Heritage status brings responsibility as well as honor. A site of this kind must be protected with care, managed thoughtfully, and preserved for future generations. That is not simple in the center of a living modern city. Conservation must balance tourism, security, research, ceremony, and the needs of the surrounding urban environment. The designation reminds us that famous places are fragile despite their stone. They require decisions, funding, expertise, and restraint. The tower's global importance means it belongs to history in a broad sense, but it must still be cared for locally. Millions visit each year to see history still carefully guarded. The crowds come because the tower offers something rare. It is not a reconstruction on an empty site. It is a real fortress with real objects, real graves, real ceremonies, and real traces of power. Visitors move through spaces where the past feels close enough to unsettle the imagination. They want jewels, ravens, prison stories, armor, architecture, and the feeling of standing inside a place that shaped national life. Managing that attention is a major task. The site must welcome the public while protecting fragile fabric and living traditions. Footsteps, weather, security needs, and constant curiosity all place pressure on the monument. Yet the act of visiting also keeps the tower meaningful. History survives more strongly when people continue to care enough to encounter it. Each visitor joins a long line of spectators, officials, prisoners, residents, and storytellers. The fortress remains guarded, but it is also continuously rediscovered by those who pass through its gates. The tower's official name is far longer than most people know. The familiar short name hides the formal grandeur of the institution. Its full title refers to the royal palace and fortress, and that matters because it preserves roles that casual speech often forgets. Calling it simply the tower makes it sound like one structure. In reality, it is a complex site with multiple towers, walls, chapels, residences, gates, and ceremonial functions. The longer name also reminds us that it remains connected to the crown. It is not merely an old castle owned by memory. The words palace and fortress carry different meanings, and both are needed. Palace suggests royal presence, ceremony, and status. Fortress suggests defense, control, and security. Together, they capture the strange identity of the place better than the common nickname does. The official name is almost a miniature history lesson. It tells us that this site cannot be reduced to prison stories or tourist photographs. It is an institution built from many purposes. It remains a royal palace, even without a monarch living there. A palace does not stop being royal simply because the sovereign no longer sleeps within its rooms. Status can remain attached, to a site through law, tradition, ceremonial function, and institutional care. The tower still belongs to the monarchy's historic landscape, and that connection shapes how it is guarded, presented, and understood. This can surprise people who think of palaces mainly as residences filled with daily court life. The tower's royal identity is older and more complex. It once offered secure lodging and administrative power. Today, it holds ceremonial responsibilities and symbols of sovereignty. Its residents, guards, chapels, and rituals all continue under a royal framework. That continuity gives the fortress a living constitutional flavor. It is not only a monument to dead kings, it remains part of the formal world that surrounds monarchy. The absence of a monarch in residence does not empty its meaning. Royal authority still echoes through its gates. The tower endures because it gathers 1,000 years into stone. Few places compress so much time into one walkable space. A visitor can move from Norman ambition to Tudor fear, from medieval worship to modern remembrance, from royal ceremony to wartime survival. The power of the fortress comes from accumulation. It does not tell a single neat story. It gathers conquest, splendor, danger, service, curiosity, grief, and continuity into one enclosed landscape. That is why it remains endlessly fascinating. Every generation found a use for it, then left a mark behind. Some marks are grand and visible. Others are hidden in archives, foundations, carvings, and changed names. The tower survives because it never belonged to one century alone. It kept absorbing history without losing its core identity. Its walls have seen London grow from a river city into a world capital. Through it all, the fortress remained present. Stone by stone, story by story, it became a place where the past still feels close enough to hear. And so, our journey through the Tower of London begins to settle. We have walked through a fortress built to command a city. We have passed through gates that once changed the course of lives. We have paused beside royal jewels, old armor, hidden chambers, and stones marked by the hands of prisoners. We have followed ravens across the grounds, listened for keys at nightfall, and remembered the people whose stories still rest within the walls. The tower is not only a place of fear, it is a place of ceremony, survival, memory, and remarkable endurance. It has stood beside the river while London rose around it, changing again and again. And still, the old fortress remains. Its towers keep their watch. Its chapels hold their silence. Its walls carry the weight of almost 1,000 years. But for now, you do not need to carry any of that weight with you. Let the stories begin to soften. Let the names and dates drift gently away. Imagine the river moving slowly beyond the walls. Imagine the last footsteps fading from the courtyard. The gates are closing. The lamps are glowing. The ravens are settled for the night. If you enjoyed this journey, you're welcome to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too. And if you are still awake, there should be another calm history video waiting on the screen, ready whenever you are. But now, let your shoulders loosen. Let your breathing slow. Let the old stones fade into darkness and allow the day to fall quietly behind you. Sleep well and good night.